Recording now. Okay, so we are Lamed base on the base, about 10 lines down, and towards the end of the line it says Teda Tzar B'Nechaim D'Oraisa. You should know that the idea of averting suffering for animals is actually a Torah requirement. And we're going to bring brises this way and that, sources from the Mishnah and around that time, to prove it one way or the other. And each time, as you'll expect, we'll find that actually here, Mark, do you want to move that around? Here, we can move this around if you want.
It's okay, I'm all right.
Okay, all right, okay. So then we're going to find each time that in fact what looks like a proof is actually not a proof.
So 10 lines from the bottom.
From the top.
Oh, from the top.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Lama base on the base. And of course, in a way, that's a good thing, because if we can't prove it one way or the other, that means our question is a good question. If we can prove it easily from a Mishnah or Brisa, whether Tzar B'Nechaim, pain for animals, is a concept that is recognized by Torah law, then why are you asking the question? Don't you know your Mishnah? Don't you know your Brisa? So it actually helps us in a way to not know. So anytime we don't find the answer, we're quite happy. All right? So let's look down to that state.
We still know it's written down.
No, we don't. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know whether there's such a concept in Torah law at all. Whether the Torah actually requires us to avert cruelty to animals. Now, of course, it's bad midas. Of course it is. But the question is it actually rooted in the Torah law or not? In the world of din, which is what we inhabit in the Gemara, as we've seen many times, is this a thing? Does it exist? Right. Teda, Gemara says, I'll know this. The Tzar B'Nechaim D'Oraisa. It is Min Torah. It is a Torah law. Dokotani Sefer, because the end of our Mishnah says, Rabbi Yosef Glili says, Im Haya Olav Yes Amasai, if the animal was carrying more than it ought to, more than an animal of this size and age and so on can reasonably carry, Ein Zokublai, you don't have to deal with it. Shenema, as it says, Tachas Masai. You see the animal rovex crouching tachas masai, underneath its burden. Why does it say underneath its burden? Well, may you knit your brows. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. Okay? I think I know what you're thinking. Tell me what you're thinking, just for fun.
Don't know what I'm thinking.
Been overloaded. That's why it's crouching.
Right. But what do you learn from the fact that it says underneath its burden?
It's taken off.
It's suffering.
Whether it is the animal or the owners.
It was the burden on the animal.
Yeah.
This says it's taking it off.
Right. It's not exactly clear whether we're taking the burden off or putting it back on again.
But the owner is causing this animal.
Yes.
I know that.
Yes. So Rabbi Yosef Glili says, just by the way, if the load is too much for the animal anyway, then you don't have to deal with it.
That means you don't have to help.
Yes.
So
we'll come back.
And if it does spread all over the
We'll come back.
no obligation.
Thus says Rabbi Yosef Glili. So we'll say, Rabbi Yosef Glili says that, because he learns Tachas Masai, underneath its burden, meaning a burden that is suitable for this animal, implying that if it's a burden that is not suitable for this animal, you don't have to help it. Thus Rabbi Yosef Glili. Now, if Rabbi Yosef Glili says that, the opinion before him that differs does not say that. That opinion says that even if the burden is too much for the animal, you must help. Says the Gemara. That shows that the main opinion in this Mishnah before Rabbi Yosef Glili says when an animal has too much on it, you must rush in and help. Therefore, and it's worth from apostle, Tachas Masai. Therefore, you see that in Torah law, you must have the animal that is overburdened. Why? Because we need to stop cruelty to animals.
If you want it to die, it's going to load it up again, then it's going to be again.
So when it happens again, you have to help again? Or if you go traveling, if you're having...
say, no, I'm not, I don't see it's right, I should help you, because you're going against the thing by causing this animal pain by overloading it, and you know you're over.
Well, the thing is, we're not policemen. We can't force one another to keep Torah to that extent.
But we can say, I feel you're wrong what you're doing, And I
Yes.
will not help you cause that animal more pain.
So if he says, fine, don't help me then, but I'm going to load up, I get the
But
next
then
one.
I might still got a Torah obligation to help it.
Well, to unload, certainly.
To unload, yes, there
Yeah.
is the pay, but I'm talking about to reload. If that animal is crouching down because it's a great pain,
I must stop
and
you
he's
there.
trying to redo it,
You're spoiling my share.
okay.
Please be quiet. Please be quiet.
Okay.
Again.
Probably the wrong place to buy.
Please be quiet because you're spoiling my whole share.
No,
Okay?
no.
Can't do that. All right, but it's a clever chap, and I can't have you say it. Okay.
Bring out the words. in-
I know, evidently, but please stop there.
No, no.
All right? You're spoiling my whole share. Okay.
Okay.
So we're talking about unloading an animal, and the animal needs to be, the animal is trotting under its load. So basically it says you don't have to help, you don't have to unload, have to load, because it's the guy's own fault. He got himself in a state, he got to sort himself out. The Tanakama, the first opinion, before basically it says, no, you must intervene and help to unload the animal. Okay? My Tama, what's the reason? Lav Mishum, do you see there's a line with a circle above the word Tafel in the middle of the line, a little circle in the body of the text. So we're now 2 lines below that at the beginning of the line. It says, what's the reason? Lav Mishum the Sabar Chaim right? So is it not that according to the first opinion in this Mishnah, which disagrees with Be'er Teglili and says you must help even when the animal is overloaded, obviously the rationale is the animal's suffering, it's overloaded, you've got to go and help, unload the animal. You can't just watch this poor animal staggering under its burden. That's no good at all. So the Gemara said no. And this welcome to Bradley's wrinkled brow. Maybe there's no such concept as Tsar B'Lechaim, as cruelty in Torah. But Dilma B'Tachas Masoi Pligi, maybe the Tanakh and Rabbi Teglin are not arguing about whether there's such a thing as stopping suffering for animals. Maybe they both agree there's no such thing as stopping suffering for animals in Torah law. There's no requirement in Torah law to stop an animal suffering. What is their argument then? Rather, it's about how to read that phrase Tachas Masoi, underneath its burden. Because Rabbi Teglin says its burden means a burden that is suitable for it. So only if the burden is suitable for the animal must you intervene. But if the burden is not suitable for the animal, you don't have to intervene. Thus should be a second. But the Tanakh says, like what I suspect Bradley was thinking, underneath its burden just means underneath its burden. It's nothing to do with whether the burden is appropriate or not for the animal. It's just there it is with its burden on it, and you got to help it.
So maybe the Torah is saying, well, it's not saying that you can be cruel. Maybe you can be cruel to animals, you just mustn't overload it.
Well, there's 2 issues here. The question of cruelty to animals is not addressed at all. Could be that doesn't exist in Torah law at all.
Yes.
You know, by Torah law, which is not obviously not very nice, but technically you can be as cruel to animals as you like. Here, we're not dealing with cruelty to animals at all. It's not a relevant concept here. The question simply is, do you have to help an animal when the owner overloaded it? So according to Rabbi Teglili, you don't. According to the Tanakh, you do. What's the bone of contention? How do we read Tachas Masoi, underneath its burden? Rabbi Teglili says, only when the burden is suitable for the animal. That's what it means. Its burden, the burden is suitable for it. The Tanakh says, no, none of your fancy stuff. And underneath its burden just means underneath its burden. You can't read into that the suitability of the burden for the animal. It's just what it is, underneath its burden. That's the story. That's what you need to go and help.
I'm being a bit slow.
Why is it underneath it? I don't understand the underneath. Oh, sorry, I'm talking about the underneath its burden.
Yeah.
What is that measured by? I mean, what does that actual
Oh,
story mean?
Well, that's exactly the problem. We don't quite know. According to Rabbi Teglili, he says it means a burden that is suitable for this animal. Go to an expert in animal loading, and he'll tell you this animal can carry 50 kilos, but not 100.
Yeah, I understand that, but where did the phrase underneath its burden? That's the bit I'm trying.
That's in the Torah.
That's in the Torah.
That's the
That's in the
Torah,
apostle. Yeah.
that's what I was trying to
Tachas,
find
I'm sorry,
out.
sort of say. Yeah. How did it go?
I'm with it now.
Yeah, so it says to him, I can't remember exactly how it goes. You find
Yeah, I
the donkey of your friend, Reves Tachas Masoi, crouching beneath its burden. It's obviously so the question is, how do we read that verse and the phrase in the Torah in the text of scripture underneath its burden? Does it mean the burden that is suitable for it and therefore not a burden that is unsuitable, or not? Do you just read it simply underneath its burden? And this is what I thought you were thinking before. When it says underneath its burden, I thought you were thinking it meant quite simply underneath its burden. We know when the Torah uses unnecessary words or a phrase that could have been simpler, then we know that it's hinting something. But here, is there anything going on when it says underneath its burden? How much simpler, says the Tanna Kamma, could you have said it than saying underneath its burden? That's well, according to the Tanna Kamma, it doesn't matter. But you could say, according to Rabbi Yosef, how much more briefly could you say it according to Rabbi Yosef, to say it only if it's underneath a burden that is suitable for it?
Don't be called to animals.
Well, the question is, it's not directly about that, because the issue here is not about cruelty to animals. It's about the obligation to unload an animal that is struggling under its burden. So according to Rabbi Yosef, when it says under its burden, it's with a nudge and a wink. It's burden, but not a burden that is not suitable for it. But according to the Tanna Kamma, they say there's nothing to see here. It just says underneath its burden because that's what's happening. You can't start plugging in extra meaning, saying, oh, only if it's a suitable burden do I have to help, but not when it's an unsuitable burden.
How do we understand from the person that is supposed to help? How are we supposed to understand is it suitable weight load, or it's truly the guy's a greedy guy and he's totally
I mean, how can you tell?
Well, by looking at how
Yeah. So for that, then, like I say, we need our experts. Presumably back in the day, they were familiar with these things. Just like nowadays, if you see a car that
But if you see another that is struggling to stand on its four legs,
yeah,
and it's crouching,
yeah,
it's got to be far too late.
not necessarily. It could be, for example, that the load is badly adjusted on its back. It could be that the animal is very tired, just needs a rest. So it could be the animal's hungry or thirsty. It's not clear.
Well, I would stop the guy and say, listen, that animal doesn't look right. Let me help you, replace the.
Yeah, you would do you would do that question because you're nice, but we're not dealing with nice people. We're dealing with him. Am I required to help? So,
What we are.
well, according to Rabbi Yosef, clearly not if the burden is too heavy.
But then, as you say,
So back in the day, people knew they could tell that
so they can look at it and know.
Yes.
So then, if I was one of those people and say that was far too much,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So according to Rabbi Yosef, you'll be fine. According to the Tanna Kamma, you're wrong. You still have to help, and it's not up to us to decide what to do and what not to do. At least unloading you must do.
So we've got to get to this argument who is right.
Yes, you're right. That's always what it boils down to. Yeah, you're right. That's exactly it.
I'm not going to fall into the trap. You're right with it. I'm not falling into
Well,
that.
it's coming soon. Okay, so the Gemara says then, initially we thought the difference between Rabbi Yosef Glini, who says you don't have to intervene, and the Tanna Kamma, who says you do have to intervene, is that Rabbi Yosef Glini says we are motivated by we are motivated by concern for animal welfare, and the Tanna Kamma says we're not. That's what we thought initially, and that's why Rabbi Yosef Glini says you only help if it's a suitable burden, but Tanna Kamma says you even help with an unsuitable burden. Then the Gemara says no, that's not true. Maybe really they agree that the animal cruelty is not a consideration. And here the question is simply how we read that phrase, tachas nasai, underneath its burden. Rabbi Yitzchak clearly says you only have to help if it's a reasonable burden. Tanna Kamma says stuff and nonsense. It says underneath its burden because that's what the situation is. It's not telling you anything special with that, and therefore you have to help come what may. So Tanna Kamma says like you. And the Gemara wanted to say that. You see, the Torah cares about animal cruelty. But then it's saying maybe not, maybe it doesn't. And here it's just a question about a drush, about how exactly I read tachas nasai.
Did you ever prove that? Do care about that?
Not yet. This is going to runs out of the mousetrap. This runs and runs and runs. We're nowhere near finish yet.
Did you ever prove that we've always known that you've got to feed your animal before you feed yourself?
I don't know that's any cruelty. We'll see. We're not there yet.
Is there not a din between one view or the other? You
Um,
said about a din.
Yeah,
Surely a din must apply.
yeah. We're not there yet. We're not there. Excuse me. I know what you want me to run ahead. Go to Shulchan Aruch. Forget that.
You
What's
shortcut now. The rabbi creates the din.
Oh well, what do you think this is? I'm not going to give. There's no free rides here. I'm not going to start just telling you what the answer is.
Burden too much.
Yeah, we've got to work.
At the end of this, I want to be horse.
Okay, can I know? Okay, right. So, let's just speak this through again. So, if you see where that circle is again, where it says tachas nesai, let's speak on 2 lines below that. My Tama, what is the reason? Lav mishum d'tzar by l'chaim de'oraisa. Is it not that the Tanna Kamma says that you've got to have the animal come what may, because the Torah does care about cruelty to animals? So the Gemara says no. Dilma, perhaps, you may be right, but may not be right. There's no proof. Maybe the argument is just about how to read that verse in the Torah, tachas nasai, underneath its burden. Rabbi Yossi hold Darshinon, we understand it to mean tachas nasai, underneath its burden, mas a burden that it is able to bear. The rabbis say, we don't understand it in that way to mean underneath a burden that's super. Just help. For goodness sake, the thing's in trouble, help it. That's it. So you got no proof. Because could be they're arguing about tzar ba'alei chayim. Could be they don't hold about tzar ba'alei chayim altogether. They're just arguing about how to understand this phrase, tachas nasai, but a general overarching concept of tzar ba'alei chayim, cruelty to animals, may not even exist as far as we're concerned. It's got no proof from that price. So I said, okay, I'll try again. Let's move on. So now we are, a second. Here. So now we've got a line that starts with the Masai, and we are in the word after that at the beginning of the line. So if you look down the beginnings of the lines, if you got that circle in the middle of the line we had before, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down from there. And it's the second word in that line, Teda. So God said, okay, I'm going to try and bring a proof the other way from another Bryce. Teda, you should know, sorry, from a Mishnah. Teda, you should know that tzar ba'alei chayim lav d'oraisa. I am proving the other way around. That tzar ba'alei chayim, this idea of avoiding cruelty to animals, is not actually based on Torah law. It's very nice, but it's not by the Torah. How so? Said the Gemara. Well, I'll tell you, the Katani Reisha, as the Reisha teaches, halach v'yoshav, like if the owner of the animal went and sat down, the Amalai said to the helper, since there is an obligation on you to unload, crike, get on with your unloading. I'm going to sit and have a smoke. You can unload my animal. So the Mishnah said, you don't have to help in such a case. Shinem, as it says, Imay. Again, this is a Torah verse. Imay. You must surely help with the owner. So if the owner is pitching to help, you help too. If the owner just sits down and says, right, get on with it, you don't have to help. So I said, oh, so imagine then we've got a case where you got a donkey that's touching onto its load, it can't manage, and you say, oh my goodness, and let me come and help you with your animal. And the owner says, well, I just gotta, have my lunch. So I'll sit and have a, and you won't learn. I'll be done in about 15 minutes, so be quick about it, please. Do you have to help? Says no. So you leave the animal suffering away. If the owner just sitting down having his lunch, you don't help. What about Tzar B'nei? What about the suffering the animal is enjoying every second? And because the owner says he doesn't want to help, you just ignore the animal suffering. Clearly then, says the Gemara, we're being taught here that the Torah does not acknowledge cruelty to animals. Because if it did, what would you say? Unload it in any case, whatever the owner is doing, help the animal. But the Torah doesn't say that. Torah says you've only got to help the animal if the owner helps too. Clearly then, says the Gemara, Tzar B'nei is not Torah.
But isn't this owner who's selfish and whatever, you clear it and not in knowledge? What about, but is this not getting things?
Here, he wants his lunch. He's not
I'm
fussed.
sure it cares about it.
Oh,
Plenty of people miss their lunch for their time.
So it suffers a bit. It'll have a bit of pain. I don't care what we dinner. I'm starving. Not eating for 20 minutes.
Why would anybody think that they could tell somebody?
It's the world of din. The world of din. You're right. The Gemara is full of idiots and horrible people.
Yes, you're right to help. I'm going to have another one.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh my goodness! I could tell you stories that make your hair curl about how
But
how
in
beautiful.
reality today, no someone I would tell somebody.
You couldn't make his hair.
In reality, today there are horrible people. I heard a story just last night about somebody who did something really horrible. You hear some horrible things.
But Din's been like that right through. Isn't
Yeah,
it? It's
absolutely.
Right through
Absolutely.
like everything. It's
Absolutely.
not a pleasant thing.
Yeah, we're not
Not
saying
the black
we're not
person.
saying this guy's a bad middle. We're not saying he's a good guy. We're not saying he's a
No,
tzaddik.
it's immoral.
He's a horrible guy. But we need to deal with such a case as well. So brass tacks, when push comes to shove, and this guy is sitting down with his lunch, do I actually have to help the donkey, or can I just walk on? That is the question. So yes, he's unreasonable. Yes, he's horrible. I accept that. What's the din? That's what I'm asking.
But he saying sometimes a Sadiq can say, well, maybe you'll learn and you'll get to the extent you should be trying to think differently. But I know what I would say to such a person.
Good luck to you. You're quite right. But again,
Well, I don't want to go against the din, but I would feel.
but bottom line, the question is, are you obliged to help? Does the din apply to you? Never mind what you actually do.
Well, you have. I don't understand what you're saying. The concern for the poor animal,
Yeah,
but this guy has got no concern for it.
Correct. correct.
So then I would walk away from it.
Right. Okay. So the question is, I mean, in fact, I disagree with you. It seems that you've only got to help if the owner helps. Yes, indeed. So therefore, we see Tzar B'nei is not an issue, because if it was an issue, you'd have to help in any event. The animal suffering. Elamai, but what must I say? That in fact the Torah does not care about it. So the Gemara then says, can anybody guess? The Gemara says no. The Gemara says you're wrong. The Gemara says that's not a proof. So let us move on a bit.
So the Gemara saying that you still have to help.
We'll see in a second.
Okay.
If you want to say that helping an animal in pain is a Torah requirement, what does it matter to me if the owner is working with you to help the animal, or whether the owner is not helping the animal? Whether the owner is not helping the animal, the bottom line is surely, if there was such thing in Tzar B'nei you have to help whether the owner is helping you or not, to help the poor animal. Rather, what must we say, says the Gemara? Clearly, this source teaches us that there's no such thing as Tzar B'nei by Torah law, no such requirement. Clearly. But wait, so the Gemara says no. La'olam really. So do you see, by the way, there's a little aleph, a Rashi aleph in brackets at the beginning of the line.
Yeah.
We are 2 lines above that in the middle of the line. La'olam really. Tzar B'nei Chaim de Raisa. Really, Tzar B'nei Chaim is a Torah requirement, perhaps. So you can't say that it isn't. Maybe it is. How you understand our Mishnah, which says that you only have to help if the owner's helping too? How can you possibly understand that? Because it's hard by Chaim is Deraisa, in Torah, you have to help in any event. So how would it work to say that you only have to help if the owner's helping?
Why is the Mishnah written in this way of flip-flopping between yes and no, yes and no, yes and no? Why wouldn't it say these are all the reasons why it is, and these are all the reasons why it's not?
Well, it's not the Mishnah's main concern. The Mishnah is not really dealing with Tzar B'Nechai. It's dealing with having animals. So it's not actually setting out to prove whether Tzar B'Nechai is Min HaTorah or not.
It is. Because each statement is starting with, actually it is by Torah law, or actually it isn't.
Right?
So why is it organised in this way?
Oh, I see. I'm not missing the question. Because it's bringing us different sources to say maybe I can prove it either way, then say no, you can't.
Oh, by each source.
Yeah. It's bringing a series of sources, different Mishnahs, saying here's a proof that it is, or that it isn't. They say, actually, no, you're wrong. That is not a proof. So if you think it is a proof, it isn't. That's why my question is a good question, says Gemara. Okay, but that's fine. So the Gemara said, actually, maybe Tzar B'Nechai is required by Torah. And nonetheless, it's still true to say you don't have to help unless the owner's helping too. How can those two work together? And when you don't know the answer, it's devastatingly hard. And when you do know the answer, it's devastatingly easy. So the Gemara says, oh, it's obvious. So we're now one line above the beginning of the line with the aleph at the beginning.
So the owner, if I come along and help, he's obliged to pay.
Oh, steady on. Hold on. Mi savras potter legamre. Do you think it means that you are altogether exempt from helping? No. The Gemara says the Dilma perhaps potter bechinam. You're exempt from helping for free. The chayev b'sachar, but you're nonetheless obliged to help, but you can charge. So when it says you don't have to help, if the owner's not helping, it means if the owner sits down and have his lunch, you don't have to help for free. You must help, but you may charge.
But you have to say this before you start. I would say.
No, you don't. No,
you don't have to say.
No.
Pay me, and I will
No.
so much,
no, you don't. No, you go and help and say, "Round that cost you 50 quid." You made me late for the Albert Hall. I'm going to charge.
I mean, let's say you just want paying regardless. You know, like, you've got a job on which you day off.
Yeah.
Why do you want paying for doing this job?
So, okay. So if if the owner's helping too, he can countermand your request.
He says I'm having my lunch.
So then, even without warning him beforehand, you can say the Mishnah in Bava Metsia says you are obliged to pay me for my work. I will invoice you, and you can pay me within 20 days.
Tell him how much you want.
So let's say, for example, you do that and you charge like £20,000. Crazy. So then he'll take you to Beis Din, and again it's din, and he'll say, "This man helped me under my animal, and he wants to charge a ridiculous amount." And that's not what the Torah requires. The Torah only requires that I pay him a reasonable fee for unloading my donkey. Not crazy, not £20,000. He can't charge anything. He charges the normal fee for unloading a donkey. Well, £10, whatever it is. That's it. Yeah, I'm glad you raised that. Thank you. Okay, so turns out that our Mishnah is not a proof, because when it says you don't have to help if the owner's not helping, it's not saying you don't have to help at all, and animal suffering be damned. No, says Gemara, maybe we care very much about animal suffering, and the Torah requires us to. And the point of saying you don't have to help when the owner doesn't help, it's just that if the owner sits down and has his lunch, you don't have to help for free. You can help and get paid. That's how to understand this Mishnah, to fit in with this requirement of Tzar B'Nechai being Min HaTorah, if indeed it is. So again, I've got this source, and I don't know how to read it. I can read it one way, I can read it another way. I got no proof. Hana, says Gemara, I don't know. Hooray, I just still don't know. So my question's still good. Then the Gemara says, we're now at the end of the line with the Aleph. They got that abbreviation there, Vav, hey, two strokes, that means thus it says, Rahmana, thus God says, Ki isi lemari bahadei, when the owner is working with you to unload the animal, aved gabei bechinam, then help with the animal, with the owner for free. V'chi leisi lemari bahadei, if the owner will not help, aved gabei besocha, then help with the donkey, but charge. But really, really, the Torah does care about paying to animals, and it says you must go and help, regardless of whether the owner is helping or not. However, the point about whether the owner helps or not does make a difference to whether you can charge. So you must help, says the Torah, because I do care about tzar b'alei. It's just you only can charge when the owner doesn't help as well. If the owner is helping as well, you can only do it. You must do it for free.
If he doesn't help,
Yeah.
you can't charge.
If it doesn't help, yeah, of course not. If the owner doesn't help,
No, if the owner says I'm sitting my lunch.
then you can charge.
Right.
Yeah.
But in what way can you not charge?
So if the owner's helping as well, then you must help him too for free. Yeah. So if the owner's doing his best,
But what if you're on your way to work and you're on
tough.
I thought he has to pension.
That's with returning
the
lost.
time you're spending, then
That's returning lost property, which is different.
no, but I just thought no, because when we talked about that, you've given a big concept.
That's the returning lost property. This is the loading a donkey.
Oh yes.
It's a different. Yeah,
Yeah.
and your question troubles me because why should it be that applies there but not here? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, the thing, like, if I'm going to lose money, I'm going to be an hour late because Torah requires me by dint to help,
Yeah,
and I'm going to have an hour's payment knocked off my wage.
right.
Then why should I not be?
Well, I mean, here's the thought. Truth be told, unloading an animal probably takes a lot less time than returning a lost object. You just cut the stuff off or wrench it off or whatever, and you're done. Won't come. But returning a lost object to its owner, give it back to it. Yeah, a huge project. Okay, right. So again, we can read this source as well, either saying that tzar b'alei is not Torah, or that it is Torah. We don't know which way to read it. It is what it is. You can take it as it comes. But the mission is not entirely clear. It admits both interpretations, and therefore you still don't know whether tzar b'alei is Torah or not. Now, we're going to miss out the bit in brackets. That's just a mnemonic to help us remember the list of the next cases. And we're going to carry on with the line below the brackets. Lema Messiah, let's say that there's a source to help Rava who says that tzar b'alei is Torah. Rava says that the Torah does require us to avert cruelty to animals. How does this go? So, what about if you have a non-Jew's donkey and it's overloaded? Do you have to help that? Or not? Do you say, I only have to help Jews? Sorry.
Depends if it's by Torah law or not.
Well, so we're talking Torah law. All in Torah law. Ah, good gazat. Yeah. So, tell me more.
So, if the Torah law is confined to animals, then no matter who owns the animal, or even if it's a stray animal, you need to help unload it.
Oh, just a second. Yeah, brilliant, super. So the Gemara is going to say exactly your point. Lemon Masele, let's say that this following case helps Rava, who says that tzar b'alei is Torah. What is it? So this is the case. You've got the little base above the word in the line below the brackets. If you have the animal of a non-Jew, you must help it as much as you help a Jew's animal. If you want to say in a way that I understand, tzar b'alei right, so like Bradley and like Reverend Levin, that tzar b'alei is something recommended in Torah law, because of that. Then you must help this animal as you would help a Jew's animal. That makes sense. I'm talking din now. Just this din. You're right. Kiddush Hashem is a separate consideration. I'm not talking about that now. You're right. I've got to boil it down. And or rather, the last narrow line, now middle of the last narrow line, first white line. If you want to say that tzar b'alei is not min Torah, why then is he helping him like it's a Jewish animal, a Jewish person's animal? Surely the obligation to help an animal, if it's not because you're helping the animal, then it's because you're helping the person. And the special obligation to go out of your way to help somebody else only applies to Jews. Now, this isn't to say we've had this before with return lost property. This didn't say we just don't care about non-Jews. Of course we do. But this din in itself only applies to Jews. So if you say that it's not Tsar Balech, if you say that there's no such thing as Tsar Balechai, then fine, I understand that we can make this distinction between Jews and non-Jews. But if you don't admit, but if you think there is such thing as Tsar Balechai min Torah, how can the Torah distinguish between Jewish owned and non-Jewish owned animals? So the fact that it says you must help both clearly indicates that there is such a thing as Tsar Balechai min Torah. Open or shut case?
That's the witness.
Or not.
In fact, it's not true. But we're gonna have to wait. We're gonna have to wait till next week to find out why. So, Yaakov, thank you for joining us. I wish you a good day. Thank you very
With
much.
all these sources.
Thank you so much, Omar. Thank you.
Sources, if we go to Heinz, we can.
Ah, very good. Very good.
Hello,
Very good.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, you.
Yeah. Thank you, Rabbi. Thank
Thank
you.
you.